The Bee Gees sang about starting a joke, but the lyric made no impression on his mind. His fragile early morning contentment had been pierced by childish block letters from a fat, felt-tipped marker, red ink, a square of paper torn from a brown grocery bag, a message of hate. He fingered the paper and read the words again, then a third time, one by one, as if reading them together he had somehow misunderstood their meaning. Most were unnecessary. One conveyed the meaning of all: death. Like the most feared tarot card or the pirate's black spot, the scrap of paper in his hands had suddenly brought a breath of the grave into his private sanctuary. He'd been in a good mood until then. It had to be some kind of a joke. He shook his head to clear it and looked up at the digital clock above the control board. 5:27 a.m. The computer had one more song scheduled before he had to take over, and he still hadn't finished mapping out his breaks. He looked down at the music log, where the top of the page read Lee Garrett Show, and flipped to the 7 o'clock hour. There were a couple of songs scheduled that had played on the CTBX 5 o'clock flashback Friday afternoon, and he ought to mention that. The song logged at 7:26 was One of These Nights by the Eagles, a 34-second intro before the vocals, easily long enough to mention the block party contest coming up. He penciled it in. Who would make a death threat for a joke? Damon Allen, the evening guy on Z104, slipped out for a toke in the back parking lot every now and then. Maybe it was stoner humor. On the other hand, the security system had been down for more than a week, and the building was empty all night. They were on the ground floor. How hard could it be for a stranger to get into the place? Would some wacko go to the trouble of breaking into a radio station just to leave a death threat on the control board? Without stealing anything? The equipment wasn't the kind of thing an average thief could sell on the street, but the control room had shelves of CDs stored along two walls. There didn't look to be any missing. It didn't make sense. Lee's gaze wandered back to the brown scrap of paper on the desk beside him. He crumpled it into a ball and tossed it into the trash can. He couldn't think about it now. He had a show to do. 25 or 624 by Chicago went into its last long chord. A station ID fired, with a ballsy voice over a musical stinger. 620 CTBX, The Box, favorites of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. George Harrison's What Is Life followed, and Lee tapped the screen of the music computer to kick it out of autoplay. Then he cranked up the volume on his studio monitor and let the juicy riff settle his nerves. The Lee Garrett Morning Show was on the air. At 3 minutes to 6 o'clock, David Berg pushed open the soundproof door, muttered a greeting, and continued through into the news booth. Jerry J.J. Jameson was just behind him, but stood against the wall to wait his turn to do sports. "Rough night last night, man?" J.J. flashed brilliant white teeth against black skin. "I heard you stomp on 2 song vocals already, and you only been on the air a half hour." Lee gave him an irritated look. "Just distracted, but if I'd known you were listening, I'd have stomped on 3 just to show you who's boss." He stabbed a button on the control board and leaned into the talkback microphone that connected him to the news booth. "Midas Muffler for news, Tim Hortons for sports, and the weather sponsor is Clam Bakers." "You'll be happy as a clam at Clam Bakers," Berg muttered over the talkback. The news stinger came on. "Good morning, I'm David Berg with CTBX News. At 6 o'clock, it's -5 degrees, and we could see some snow." Lee cranked the monitor volume down. "They didn't change their slogan, did they?" JJ asked. "Hell no. Dave's just getting punchy, thinking about leaving this place for the new job in Windsor. Or maybe he got laid last night." "Well, you didn't, I can tell that much." "No need to rub it in," Lee grinned. His gaze swept over the trash can and the ball of brown paper inside. His mind could no more leave it alone than a tongue could ignore a sore tooth. But he didn't want JJ to see it. He picked up a couple of old printouts from the counter and tossed them into the can.